Hi, good afternoon. I'm Sam Stacey and I want to introduce you to this webinar on advanced industrial methods for the construction of homes. We have some great panelists that you'll be hearing from. Oliver Novakovic from Barratt Group, Wayne Hill from L&G Group, John Forster from the Forster Group, Claire Pickin from the MTC, Lucy Black from Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and Stewart Dalgarno from the Stewart Milne Group. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. Recording will be available on the CSIC channels and will be sent to all participants afterwards. If you want to ask a question, please click on questions in the control panel and type in your questions and press send. We'll try to answer as many as we can. There'll be a couple of poll questions coming through, so please do answer them. Your feedback is extremely valuable, so we take all questions and comments on board, even if we haven't got time to answer them all. And we do have some videos to share during today's webinar. If you're struggling to hear these, please check your audio options on the computer setting and not phone. If you have a monitor plugged into your laptop, you may have to disconnect the second screen in order to hear. So the AIMCH project is part of this wider mission to transform the construction industry. And we're really trying to make a revolutionary change to the construction industry, and indications are that we're making great progress with that. We're engaging with a pipeline of activity across the construction spectrum. AIMCH is the flagship for the housing part of that, although there are other housing elements to it. So over these 4 years of the challenge, and we're halfway through it now, we're looking to see some really fundamental changes to the way that the UK construction industry operates, to the benefit of certainly people working in the industry and indeed to wider society. So that's probably enough from me in terms of a basic introduction to this. And on that note, I'd like to hand over for a brief introductory video to the AIMCH project.
AIMCH is a fantastic R&D project. It's a housing industrialisation about bringing mainstream off-site construction to marketplace. I believe it will be a game changer for the sector. Our focus within AIMCH is about delivering mainstream panelised off-site construction methods that are the same or less cost than conventional methods of construction. We believe AIMCH will bring in many benefits around reducing the dependency on skills, improving our quality, increasing that housing output in terms of numbers at a viable price point.
The great thing about MMC and product that's come through a factory produced system by whatever means it arrives is you know what you're buying.
Well, I think AIMCH represents a fantastic opportunity for the home building sector in the UK to grasp this burgeoning opportunity to modernise itself.
The AIMCH project really draws together the key elements of transforming construction. So, we know there is so much opportunity and indeed need to transform the construction sector. And in a microcosm, we've got all the key components with AIMCH. Hi, thanks very much for that. Now, Stewart would like to say a few words as an introduction.
Hello, everybody. Can everyone see my screen okay? I'm assuming so. So, welcome to the AIMCH Halfway Project webinar. My name's Stewart Logano. I'm the project lead for the AIMCH partners. I'm going to give you a quick canter through some pictorial slides to give you a bit of insight to what the partners have been doing over the course of the first 18 months of the project. So we've completed our first MMC prototype units with Barratt developments in Warrington. It used both Category 2 Panelised systems and Category 7 lean processes. So an example of the units have been built here on display, where we've got closed panel systems with windows pre-fitted, pre-finished floors, and a novel ground erect roof system, fully tiled and lifted onto place. And you'll see also without scaffolding to erect that home in less than 6 hours on this particular site. Recently, these homes were completed and sold to the public, which was good, and we've got our first occupants in these homes. And we had a recent visit from Boris Johnson, you can see here, as part of the build strategy recently announced by government. We've also been working on our second development with London and Quadrant in our counties region at Milton, Keynes. We're again using a timber-based panelised system. We've been building prototype homes here as well, using some novel systems such as pre-finished party wall panels, including concrete prefabricated floor systems, and a ground erect roof system. So again, building a house in a day. And recently, as of yesterday, one of the plots also had a modular roof system fitted onto it as part of the trials, which went quite successfully yesterday. One of our partners, Forster Roofing, who's a small medium enterprise but a specialist subcontractor in roof tiling and renewable technologies, has been looking to develop a proof of concept system for an advanced roof tiling system, which removes the need for silica dust on the building site and improves productivity in terms of the speed at which roof tiles and renewable systems can be fitted. So they've got a test rig built at the MTC's Coventry Centre, where we're currently doing some proof of concept trials to look at the digitisation of the roof shape, and then through some of the augmented reality headsets, a methodology for placing the components direct onto the roof structure without the need for any paperwork. During the construction of our Barratt's developments and the London Quadrant developments, we've been monitoring the homes. So we've been using the Calibre tool to do time and motion studies to understand and capture real data on live developments to see where the benefits of MMC are and where the pitfalls are. We're starting to harvest that data now, and we'll be doing more analysis of the pros and cons of that information as part of the second phase of the project towards the next 18 months. We've also linked up with Homes England to ensure that their MMC sites that they're currently monitoring are done in a similar way, so that the two projects can work in tandem and unlock some real knowledgeable data to inform decisions about modern methods of construction. We've also developed with the partnership of Manufacturing Technology Centre a future factory simulation. So for those looking to invest in future factories, the image on the top left is essentially a calculation tool that allows you to put inputs in to then derive outputs. Those outputs can go into the image on the right, which is essentially a simulation tool, which allows you then to simulate the products being pushed through the manufacturing process. All of this can combine into the development of a architectural model for what a future factory might look like, whether that's a large-scale factory or a small-scale factory. And these technologies have been used by both Stewart Milne in their future considerations, and also Forster in terms of their future consideration for their roofing system. We've also been looking at how we can produce the category 2 products in a more efficient way. So looking at the introduction of robotics and automation into the manufacturing processes. So the image on the left is essentially a proof of concept trial using a robot to fit a window into a opening, and it's done in partnership with the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and then working with a number of supply chain technology partners to develop automated work centres, including the use of robotic technology for various different work centres required on a production process to manufacture different forms of MMC, including the bottom right an image showing a methodology for fitting insulation into the panels at high speed and at low cost. We've also been undertaking variability studies, and this is very much looking at standardisation. So between the 3 developers involved, Stewart Mill Homes, London Quadrant and Barratt, we've been looking at common platforms such as floor elements on the right hand side, looking at different supply chain, looking at the standardisation of say for example a joist depth, and also on the left the image looking at apertures for windows and doors, and looking to see where the sweet spots are where you could start to coalesce around about standardised aperture sizes and dimensions that can still produce a beautiful home, but provide that standardisation that you see in the car industry into the construction industry, where we can unlock some commercial benefits. Again, the next step is to work with the supply chain to see if we can actually produce these standardised sizes and dimensions that would then flow into future housing design. We've also been working on a range of product families from that learning. So what would be our preferred window aperture sizes in the bottom left? What would be our preferred wet room dimensions if we're looking at homes of the future and we're considering things like a pod and panel system in the future? Could you standardise the creation of en-suites, bathrooms and ground floor toilet spaces through potentially a hybrid pod and panel? And to do so, what would be the optimum layouts for those? Again, engaging with supply chain. The image on the right is sort of an overlay of some of the house types we've been looking at to see could you actually standardise these and put these into homes of the future. Again, the image on the right is looking at the stairs, so working with stair suppliers to look at how you can modularise stair components with things like quarter landings, four winders, 3 winders or straight flights, so that you can produce a range of stair components from standard component sub-assemblies. We've also been working hard on the move towards BIM and created, or in the process of creating, a guide to a BIM housing manual. So a developer who wants to go down a BIM enabled route, which is clearly advantageous. We've got essentially a guide here that allows them to create their own BIM housing manual. This is quite well developed, and towards the end of this year, I would expect to have a generic manual, a guide to create your own manual available on our website. And also looking at a DFMA guide, so design for manufacturing assembly, on the key outputs required for things like panelised constructions. This would be fairly material agnostic. So in the case here, we've shown timber, but it could easily be steel frame, it could be SIPs, it could be concrete panelised systems. So you've got a wide choice of MMC systems available. And then finally, a lot of what we've been doing is about sort of sharing and disseminating our learning. We have a programme of preparing information papers and completing a lot of work over the course of the next 18 months. So you'll start to see a lot of information flow. A good access point to that is through our website, www.aimch.co.uk, where you can actually download some of that content that can maybe inform and share our learning with the wider industry, stakeholders and other housing developers who would be interested in the outcomes from this project. So hopefully that gives you a quick canter through the update to date. We've got quite an assembled line of people available to take questions, and I'll hand back to Sam at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. That was terrific, and certainly some things I didn't know. So I'm very pleased to see the progress that you're making. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Oliver Novakovic from the Barratt Group, who will run you through a few advances from his perspective. Oliver, we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, good.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great. So yeah, I've been asked to just have a quick chat about some of the challenges that obviously COVID has brought and how MMC might help us through that. I mean, obviously, as Stewart said, the importance of industrialisation to us as a business. I mean, I think it's never more important, and probably been highlighted slightly by the COVID aspect of maintaining the things that have been acute all the time to us. So in some ways things haven't changed. You know, we've still got challenges around skills and materials. They remain. We've still got the challenge, you know, and actually for many house builders now, we're having to build a lot of houses to meet demand. Whether that continues, we're yet to see, but at some point that will come back, and government's targets, you know, of hundreds of thousands of homes to be built, that will come back, because we need homes for people in the country. So I suppose, so for me, nothing's changed really. I mean, MMC and this project specifically, and what we're learning from it, is, if anything, has become more important. So what we're taking from the project is, and what was always key to us about the project, is really understanding MMC, understanding how we ensure it gets applied in the right manner to get the benefits out of it, so that it can compete with some of the traditional methods, and so that we can look at how we can use skills and materials differently. And I think it's important to highlight that doesn't mean that, you know, MMC suddenly takes over and delivers everything. What it does is it allows us to take account of the additional amount of units that we will require in the future, the change to skills, the requirement to continue high levels of quality, and probably more importantly than anything is really see that, you know, it is possible to apply and get a successful outcome. So that's it from me. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Yes, I would reinforce that view that same old challenges, but COVID has sort of refocused us, let's say, on the need to address them. At this point, I'd like to run a quick poll on MMC. So here you are with the poll. If you could go ahead and note your views. I think it was 40 seconds you get to make your choices. Terrific. Well, either we're preaching to the converted or we've converted a lot of people, but that's an impressive result. So 82% already working on off-site construction. Thank you for that. DFMA features highly here, new technology too. So altogether, certainly with regards to this constituency, very positive results, I think. Great. Okay. Next up, I would like to hear from Wayne Hill from the L&G group, please.
Hello. Just first to check that everyone can hear me. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect, Sam. Hi. Yes, my name is Wayne Hill. I'm from the L&Q group. We deal majoritively, obviously, and known for our affordable housing, but we also deliver houses ourselves as well as part of a non-profit mechanism. And I think one of the questions we're often asked is in regards to how does MMC, why is it important to affordable homes, and how is it going to impact? What are we looking for within the AIMCH project? And I think fundamentally our drivers are around speed of delivery, but mainly also quality of delivery. I think one of our biggest concerns as a business is when we build homes, we own them for a long time. And it's important that we can create standards and actually deliver homes that we're going to hold for 50, 60 years that will be good to run, good for our residents to live in. And I think one of the key drivers and what we're looking at this project is MMC comes with a lot of inherent benefits over traditional delivery. And obviously the main focus on that is that if we can predict what we're building, we understand our supply chain, if we can get standardization in place and we can get precision manufacturing into the build of our homes, we can be confident that our residents inherit a much stronger home than we as a sector can deliver currently. But also we can also start to address certain things such as fuel poverty, and the actual quality of the home and how our residents actually get to enjoy that. So I think in view of that, and certainly AIMCH, it's been an incredibly pleasing project to be part of, and the outcomes of this will help us and the sector around us, the HA sector, deliver more quality homes at much faster rates. And I think just as one last takeaway I would say is that probably also one of the most impressive parts of the project is the collaboration aspect. And we as a business, and we know the sector needs to collaborate more. It's a key driver a lot of people pick up. So I think one of the most encouraging parts has been all the partners come together, sharing learning and trying to deliver some of that works across the entire housing sector.
Lovely, Wayne. Thank you very much for that. I'm glad you brought out the quality issue, because I think, going back several decades, there was a sense that modern methods didn't produce quality, but we're absolutely in a place now where modern methods produce the highest possible quality. And I think the AIMCH, working at the scale we are at and the team we've got, will really demonstrate that we get top quality outputs from these approaches. Great, so I'd like to move on to John Forster of the Forster Group, please.
Thank you, Sam. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So I wanted to try and give a slightly different perspective, because we are an SME group of businesses. Therefore we are the smallest player. I sometimes refer to us as a big fish in a small pond, really, because we are a Scottish company operating in the main for house builders. In fact, pretty much working for all the major house builders who build in Scotland. And in fact, we complete as a subcontractor roofing and solar installations combined as a service for almost 20% of what the major house builders build in Scotland. So that gives you a sense of the scale and a bit more of the detail of what we do. I mentioned the solar piece because obviously it's hugely relevant. It's relevant not just because of COVID, and for some of the reasons, for example, that Wayne referred to there in terms of the future of challenges like fuel poverty, but obviously climate change is very much on everybody's minds, and indeed so it should be. So we have a fairly advanced set of building standards in Scotland, been on a journey with that since 2010, which is why, although we started out as a roofing contractor in 1990, since 2010 we've been developing this integrated package that is roofing and solar. And basically every house that we put a roof on now in Scotland pretty much has solar integrated into that, and very much seeing that as part of the future of housing, not just in Scotland, but undoubtedly with the new building regs coming through in the rest of the UK, as they are set to do the transformation of the way we build, I'm sure, in that regard over the next probably decade. So I guess from our point of view, it's useful just to reflect briefly on rather than necessarily MMC specifically, but what it's been like for us as an SME subcontractor. I think we have benefited enormously from that word that Wayne used a moment ago, collaboration. The project has been excellent in that regard, working alongside a mixture of major house builders, major manufacturers, and with the skill set that organisations like MTC have brought, has really helped us as an SME business boost our innovation. And that is something that we are fairly well known for. And since reference has been made to some of the challenges that are still out there, and skills being one, I think that everybody's mentioned so far. We have a fairly intimate relationship with the Skills Challenge, because we opened our own Skills Academy in 2015. It's a fairly, it is to be fair, a unique presence in Scotland, and fairly highly regarded. But that gives us an exceptional understanding of what it is like to create that future workforce. And that is where, whether you're an SME or whether you're a major house builder, then that challenge is one that is growing all the time. I'm sure we're aware of that. So I won't go into the detail of exactly our roofing system innovation, but suffice to say that one of the major challenges it will address is potentially the one around skills, and indeed future skills. We are taking that to another level. You heard reference in Stewart's introduction to using or developing a solution around augmented reality. That's certainly pushing that innovation opportunity even further. And equally, that's part of the wider digital solution that we're working on, as well as the offsite manufacturing piece. And the offsite manufacturing piece, one of the other references Stewart made in his introduction was in relation to health and safety solutions. Well, we've been in a health and safety crisis. If you look at COVID and indeed the reactions that have been required over the past few months, and certainly we've worked very closely with a number of stakeholders, continue to do so, HSE being one, and indeed around this particular issue that we're dealing with or hoping to deal with here in our solution, and that is one of silica dust. Health, and we see how overloaded the challenge of a major pandemic has stretched our amazing NHS to clearly to breaking point, but they've done an incredible job. If I was to say that there are estimated to be around 600,000 former construction workers in the UK who are currently being treated by the NHS for silica dust related issues, you will appreciate that an innovation that tackles something in that regard, and our solution will hopefully see the end to the creation of silica dust on site. So very practical solutions, great working with the partners, and frankly, from our point of view, as an SME who wishes to become something larger in our future growth, then this innovation opportunity is going to see us use all of the strands of MMC and bring hopefully what will be an industry-changing transformation to one of the key subcontractor components, which is I'm going to say roofing, but actually I'd rather be recognised for our roofing and renewables solutions of the future.
Thank you very much, John. From my perspective, really pleased to hear that the collaboration is really bearing fruit for you. I think part of transforming construction is about establishing new patterns, new business relationships across the industry, and I really hope that the experience here will be sort of picked up and cause a sort of domino effect of changing approaches across the industry. So thank you for that. Next on our list is Claire Pickin from the MTC, who will talk a bit about the factory simulation activities. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you very much. So I'm Claire Pickin, and I head up the construction and infrastructure sector in MTC. There's going to be a bit of repeating here, but I guess I would say that it's that good, it is worth repeating. So I am going to start by looking at the advanced factory simulation, which we've been working on within this project and Stewart talked about. It has the potential to have a really positive impact on the time, cost, effectiveness of a new line or a factory installation. And by using a mathematical model, which is what we do, you can input all of the manufacturing requirements in terms of the throughput, equipment, estimated timings, and then what you get out of that is a first draft of a factory model. That can then be verified and validated with more advanced and traditional simulation tools. But the way the model is actually set up, it enables the analysis of many different scenarios without the need for highly skilled simulation experts. So it means that it's possible to explore the boundaries of a business case and the uncertainty of those assumptions. It's also possible to create a 3D model for greater visualization if that's what's required. As the output is digital, it's feasible to do many iterations of the factory layout, reflecting different business models before you even get close to moving equipment or even building the factory. So effectively, that advanced factory simulation is a decision-making tool, would be a way to look at it, that actually then enables the business to become more resilient and increase the certainty of the output. That's one example of how technology and innovation can assist in developing a business, but you can also broaden it out to consider manufacturing methodologies, some of which have already been mentioned, that are well established in other sectors, and I will mention automotive. It has been said, and I get this, that building something is not the same as making a car, because there are too many variables and elements that cannot be controlled. I suppose my counter to this would be to take the opportunity to reduce many of these variables and to focus on control of things that can actually be controlled. So what I'm referring to here is taking a lean approach to construction, identifying value and eliminating waste, and utilising some of those tools and techniques that have been in use for many years in other industries. So they might include design for manufacture and assembly, which Stewart's already mentioned, introducing component sub-assembly standardisation, quality management through something like a construction quality planning tool, and that is about having products that can be engineered and then repeatedly reproduced. Material scheduling hasn't been mentioned actually, but so this would really improve the predictability and material availability. That reduces delays, movement, loss and damage, all the things that you can come up with when you're on a construction site. And then I suppose the biggie is the productivity measurements. The theory goes, if you measure it, you can improve it. And I don't think we've got any argument here that we have a specific productivity challenge in construction. It's also being covered within this project with monitoring the productivity on the construction sites, but be under no illusion, this is a difficult thing to do in many industries and it's no easier in construction, but it's absolutely something we should be aiming to do. So some of these approaches are demonstrated in the proof of concept work and the roof tiling that's just been mentioned. The idea behind that is to measure the roof at truss stage, send the data to the factory where the tiles are pre-cut, labelled and returned to site for installation. The expansion of this then is the possibility of utilising augmented reality to assist the roofer in putting the tiles in the right positions. So within MTC, we have wide experience in other sectors, and it makes sense to use as much of this learning and, in the terminology of lean, steal with pride from other industries. Others have been through the pain, therefore it makes perfect sense to start with their lessons learned. And COVID has been mentioned, and I think I would say that there is a positive that we can take from this, because we could look at this as this catalyst for change, because it is absolutely clear that we can't be the same anymore and our on-site activities have to change.
That's great, Claire. Thank you very much for that. Interesting to hear about the generative design, the factory simulation, because I think that has very wide applicability, really, from the point of view of all building types. We're doing work, as you're probably aware, with regards to standardizing school design and generative design techniques for schools. So a similar sort of approach can be applied, frankly, to any building type. And that massively improves both productivity and reliability in the design phase. And then interesting also to hear about how you're really making inroads into productivity on the construction site itself as well. And I guess we don't have the sort of full results through from this yet, but certainly I would expect to see some really spectacular advances in productivity at all stages from that. So thank you very much for that. Now I'd like to hand over to Lucy Black from the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre. Over to you, Lucy.
Here we go. Thanks, Sam. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Lucy Black. I'm Director of Innovation and Engagement at Construction Scotland Innovation Centre and a steering group member of AIMCH. Just a quick intro to Construction Scotland Innovation Centre for anybody who's unfamiliar. We're quite a unique body set up to support the transformation of the construction sector, forging collaboration between industry, government, the public sector and academia. We're hosted by a university, Edinburgh Napier University, and we're actually home to a unique 35,000 square foot innovation factory outside Glasgow, which provides access for industry to key MMC technology and knowledge, particularly in relation to timber construction. So for us, the AIMCH project, our role in it is to make sure its findings are available to the sector. And our main role is working across the project to take the learnings so that industry can benefit and be engaged in the project. So we're responsible for all the open communications to key stakeholders and wider industry and managing the digital platforms and events like this to promote the key progress and outcomes of the AIMCH project. So I've been asked to speak about how industry can get involved and learn more about MMC to really help with your future resilience. So first and foremostly, in terms of shared learning, we really want to encourage you to follow this project. There's lots of good dissemination activity going on, including events like this. Visit the website, aimch.co.uk. Follow us on social media, on LinkedIn and Twitter. There's lots of great content, opinion, videos, links, all available there. Equally, watch out for further stakeholder events, such as this one, that will promote key findings. And increasingly, we're going to have a focus on information papers as key outputs of the project are achieved and disseminated. It's great to hear across the team here about collaboration, and really for future resilience, we need to be collaborating more. So we really hope as part of the AIMCH, you're inspired to be more collaborative, as progressing MMC deeply within industry really requires deeper collaboration between government, the public sector, clients, Construction Leadership Council and forward-thinking industry players, all looking to build a more resilient future. So to name a few, collaboration is key for you with knowledge and support bodies like the Construction Innovation Hub, CSIC, as well as leading research bodies such as the Manufacturing Technology Centre, AMRC, and COSIS, which is the Centre for Off-Site Construction and Innovative Structures at Edinburgh Napier University. In fact, there was a great article published just last week in The Structural Engineer by Robert Hairstands, who's head of COSIS, on a 5-point plan for MMC to save the planet. So you might want to have a look at that. It was looking at unpacking how hashtag offsite construction and hashtag MMC can respond to the goals of hashtag sustainable development via a 5 capitals model. A really interesting read. I mean, it's important to note that the knowledge, tools and technology are all out there for MMC. They're out there, they're available. So it's all about culture change and changing attitudes and building your business case for employing them. One of the things we would like to extol as part of key learning is that key to expanding your MMC and building resilience is making an investment case. And first and foremostly, to make that investment case, you're going to need to understand your baseline stats as regards to costs, capital cost per square metre, whole life cycle costs, productivity, time on site per square metre, efficiency, waste. So be like Stewart, Milne, be like Barratt, and engage in on and off-site productivity studies. Work with key partners like BRE and their Calibrate productivity mapping tool, and have your benchmarking data and be able to develop subsequent plans for improvement. And something to know is CLC have recently published the Smart Construction Dashboard on its website, and that's home to some good benchmark data and metrics too. So basically, we're asking you to keep mining the information and results of this project and others through some of the communication mechanisms that I've mentioned. Embrace industrialisation, embrace standardisation and push for productivity. Increase productivity, good working practices and quality, and most importantly, embrace collaboration. The AIMCH team, all of us here, welcome inquiries and new ideas, so please continue to follow the project and comment and feedback. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I can't emphasize too much the importance of sharing the findings. AIMCH is a big project, L&Q, Barratt's both huge organisations, but what we're after here is fundamental change to the industry. So, you know, Lucy's role in sharing that information is so important in relation to that, and do keep her and the team busy with inquiries. You know, if there are any things where you need to know more about how to strengthen the business case for these approaches, I'm sure the team will be able to provide that information. So vital role there. Thank you, Lucy. Finally, back to Stewart for a few comments on the findings from the work so far.
Thank you, Sam. So yeah, just to finish off this section before we go to the next poll and the question and answer open for the audience. I'm often asked, you know, what are the important aspects of AIMCH, and you know, what can we learn and influence into industry and government stakeholders. And collaboration, we've heard already, is a key thing, and I think this is probably the best example of a collaborative project that's around at the moment. Stewart Milne Group, we would not be able to do what we're doing without the support and the help of the partners round about us. You know, we all bring something to the party, and I'm convinced that the overall proposition and solutions that will arise from that will be better for it. So quite often, some people in our organisation think we should go alone. I think the real world is about working with others with the same like-minded attitudes and same sort of business outcomes and objectives to really share and power up that step change that people are looking for. So collaboration is, again, another key word. I would suggest the other important aspect is the support for innovation. So thank you to UKRI for their help through the industrial strategy, and yourself, Sam, and the people at Innovate UK. But it's hard for business to innovate all of the time. You know, it's tough times at the moment. We just come out of a recession. We're now going to go into going into a COVID issue, and that could lead to further difficult times ahead for many organisations. So to innovate whilst keeping the business going, you need that additional funding, that help to get you to do things that otherwise you probably would not do or would be very difficult to justify. So the support of government to continue to invest in grant funding and or innovation opportunities is pretty critical to drive this transformation we're looking for. And then the last thing I would say really is just the opening up of the market. AIMCH is all about mainstream, near to market, scalable solutions for MMC. Our focus is on Category 2 panelised systems. That includes Category 7 lean processes like the Forster roofing solution, like the scaffolding erect, like the other systems we're looking at, and maybe a Category 5 pod solution in the future. You know, all of those can represent a collective solution that's equal and equivalent, if not better, to other forms of MMC such as modular. But you have to create the demand for that. So I would say to government, look at procurement. How can you leverage procurement? How can you create the demand? How can you aggregate the demand and create that pipeline of work? I'm sure the industry and the supply chain within the industry and the leading developers and the SMEs will be able to invest if you can see a pipeline of work that allows you to do so. So whether it's building factories or developing new headsets or looking at different tools or techniques on a housing site, you need that pipeline of surety, whether it's funding, land, or just a pipeline of homes to be built. So government procurement has a big part to play, and I was encouraged to hear recently from Homes England that within the 12 billion announcement for affordable housing, there's going to be more of a commitment towards MMC as part of that as well, and that just helps provide that catalyst for change. So those are my three key things: government procurement, collaboration, and support for innovation. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very, very much, Stewart. I mean, certainly from my experience in the industry, it's security of demand that is the key thing that unlocks modern methods in construction. And I think we're moving to a state where there is a much clearer pipeline. I think we've got, you know, this strong support from government, this presumption for offsite, and you know, I hope that we'll just pick up momentum. The more that we can show that modern methods produce benefits, that will build the demand, and that'll be a virtuous circle. So thank you for that. Time for our second poll, if that's okay. So 40 seconds or so to answer this one. Okay, again, some, I think, very encouraging results. Cost reduction 67%. So I'm pleased to see that there's a good deal of confidence about that, because I think there is perception in some parts of the industry that it's difficult to get cost reduction from modern methods. Productivity clearly beneficial. Also nice to see sustainability and quality control scoring so highly. So thank you very much for that. Now, I've had a number of questions in. Keep them coming. I'll jump in with a question that I've had through during the session. Question from Justin, who says, I'm a big fan of MMC. However, I noted in the presentation there, from the roofing perspective, there doesn't seem to be much focus or exploration into using alternative and progressive pitched roofing systems. There are systems that are lighter, stronger and quicker to install than traditional concrete or clay tiles, but never seem to be considered. How is the industry addressing that? So no doubt John will have some very good things to say about that question.
Well, I'll see if we can shine some light on that, on an answer for you, Justin. So, to be fair, these lighter weight systems, the ones that I think you're referring to, have been trialled extensively, and I'm sure some of our house builders panelists could refer to what they've done in that regard specifically. But I certainly know we were trialling those systems, probably best part of 3 decades ago in the early stages. So certainly we have trialed a variety of different systems from different manufacturers using different products, but all along the lines of what you suggested. However, on balance, and I don't want to get too involved in the detail because there's a big piece here that ultimately is about cost, but on balance, what we have simply found is that for the volume side of the market, cost matters. So yes, you can potentially you can install quicker. Yes, they are lighter. There are a variety of benefits, but unfortunately, against that, there are also some limitations to those systems. And the biggest one of all is cost. And sadly, you know, we already have a huge challenge in the provision of enough housing. A reference made, I think, earlier this week to the fact that there are perhaps as many as 4 million people currently on the housing waiting list for rented social housing in the UK. So, you know, we need a lot of housing, and that housing has to be built quicker. MMC is a huge part of that, but it also has to be built affordably, and all the other aspects as well that we have to consider. So those systems are always of interest, and certainly across the spectrum of roofing that we do, from time to time we do get involved with alternative lightweight systems. But as it stands just now, the volume market, as you referred to in your question, is supplied by tiles, and they are in the main concrete and clay. Indeed, the solution that we're all looking at and we're specifically developing is around that standard roof tile product.
Great, thank you, John. I'm going to jump to a question that we had before the session. Came in from Chris Mackenzie-Grieve from Visible Projects Limited, but something that is of obviously great interest to everyone. what's the cost comparison with traditional and the time difference end to end of the project? I know this is sort of a central topic, and the polling results gave a good indication of the views on that. But possibly, Oliver, from your point of view, what's your confidence in cost reductions and time savings? You're on mute, mate. That sounds better. No. Does anyone else want to jump in on that one while Oliver's getting ready?
I can certainly have a go from.
Am I here now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you, yeah.
Sorry, Stuart. Do you want to carry on, or do you want me to jump in?
No, now you're back into it. I'll let you answer that one.
Sure. So what I was saying is, look, regarding confidence, we set a target of 20% MMC by 2020, and that was, you know, to make sure it was viable and then to deliver it. And we've, you know, in 2019 we were already at 20%, and the only way that happens is because it is viable. We wouldn't do it if it's not viable. That's just not a business decision. So skill shortages, material shortages do drive the sort of start to looking at it, but actually then we look at how we drive volume and efficiency, standardization, and many other things to make offsite succeed. On our journey, we're currently finding that, if you like, the more simpler MMC systems, such as open panel, large format block, some of the ground floor systems are viable because we can take the speed and bring it to the benefit of cost, if you like. I think the more advanced systems, they will rely on some of the other aspects to kick in, which will come. So I suppose the best way of knowing that it's viable is if you look at probably the top 10 house builders, pretty much most of them will be applying one type of offsite or other into their businesses, and I can tell you now that they wouldn't do that if it didn't make business sense. That there's historic proof of that where MMC hasn't worked, it's not been used. So
that's encouraging to hear. Encouraging to hear. Thank you very much, Oliver. I'm going to take a question that's come through the chat here, because this is another important topic that we should air. From Chris: whilst MMC will create jobs, it will also lose jobs in the traditional sector. Has any analysis been carried out on the net jobs creation or loss? So I don't know who wants to jump in on that.
I think I can have a go.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah,
so
it's Stewart.
Yeah.
Clearly, one of the challenges is on the type of MMC system you're using, and the further up the prefabrication or the amount you do in the factory, then you're displacing the labour into the office, into the factory environment. The sort of systems we are looking at are more of the near to market sort of systems, which are more panelised systems. And what we're finding in the market as regards labour is that there's an opportunity to extend the workforce. So, for example, you know, if you build a shell really quickly, as we've done at Barratt, whether it's made of timber, concrete, SIPs, or steel, you probably still need to clad it. So you still need a bricklayer. That bricklayer will be more productive on that development. He'll probably lay 20% more bricks. His earning potential goes up. He's not having to lift so many heavy components like big steel lintels or do more complicated work, because most of the insulation and the weather protection is already fitted onto the shell of the building sort of style. So that skill is retained in the workforce and is actually extended beyond the workforce, as an example of how things can work in favour for you. Equally, we're also seeing the ability to upskill people. So, for example, a carpenter or a joiner on a building site using masonry construction at the moment, you know, he's putting the floor in, he's putting the roofs on already, and we can extend that person to train them, upskill them to actually do, put up the walls as well. Again, whether it's a SIPS wall, whether it's a timber wall, a steel one, it's the same principles of the type of skill sets you need to erect that wall system. And therefore, that person, rather than displacing them and losing jobs, you're actually retaining them and enhancing their package on the site as well. So that's about sort of upskilling, and there's an opportunity there, I think, within these sort of incremental solutions, rather than the big bang change to, say, a fully developed modular system where you're moving a significant amount of labour into the factory environment, not always at the lowest cost, I should add as well. But that's kind of the strategies we look at to try and enhance that and retain and enhance that existing workforce that's in place.
Yeah, I think that's a positive view. I think that, thinking in terms of higher value jobs, I honestly don't think we're in a position in the industry where a glut of labour is anywhere near our problem. What we want is successful businesses. And I imagine, John, from your perspective, it's a similar view, isn't it? This is going to lead to successful businesses, but not a sort of glut or surplus of labour.
I 100% agree, Sam. Spot on. The skills challenge, the labour availability challenge, is seen right across the industry, not just, of course, in house building, because there's the wider construction sector, and it is a significant challenge. There are plenty of people who work in the industry. It's a huge industry. Obviously, about 10% of the UK workforce is working in construction as a whole. So we are a massive industry. But if you look at the situation that's evolved out of COVID, and naturally that's a part theme today to bolt onto this session, we're probably just now, and Oliver, you might comment more directly, but probably looking at build rates that will perhaps drop by 20% on the back of the adaptations to COVID. And in that situation, where, if you like, the labour force that was out there was already stretched trying to build what needed to be built, then there isn't magically another 20% just waiting to jump in. So if we can find MMC solutions that, for example, make, whether it's the erection of the timber frame or whether it's the roofer putting on the roof tiles, if we can speed that up to compensate, then right now, obviously that is a huge benefit. And as we go forward, that challenge, particularly if we're going to see, as it would appear we will, with UK and regional government support for house building to try and meet that huge challenge that is housing, then frankly, we're not, if we can find, and indeed there's considerable opportunity, I know, across the whole project for all the partners, and certainly in our particular solution, the productivity improvement is significant. So that increased productivity is very quickly going to be consumed in terms of demand from wider industry.
That's great. Thank you, John. I'll move on to another question we got in advance, for this one from Robin Dunbar of Keir. Another important point, I think. How concerned are the panel with regards to the review of the ban on the use of combustible materials and its effect on modern methods of construction? So I don't know whether John or Stewart would like to start on that, but anyone's free to jump in.
I'm happy to have a go at that. So thanks for the question. All buildings need to be built safely, whatever materials you're using. Obviously, our focus with AIMCH is more the low-rise housing and apartments up to 4-storey. So we're very conscious that there will be new requirements post-Grenfell around about building safety systems required around about fire compliance, whatever material you're using, be that concrete, steel, timber or SIPS products. So as part of AIMCH, we've already been doing some trialling of more fire safe solutions. So for example, a prefabricated party wall where the fire protection is fitted, closed panel walls where again the fire protection is fitted inside and outside, and actually working with L&Q and some of the sites that they're building to do some initial trials with apartments blocks for that technology. And also validating that through testing of products such as BS 8414 tests, etc., just to give full and unequivocal confidence going forward that these systems you're developing are fit for purpose. We need all range of materials available. You can't just build everything out of non-combustible materials. That would pretty much kill the industry and kill a lot of the capability that exists in the UK to do stuff. So we need all forms of materials, be that insulation systems, timber-based systems, or whatever available. And to me, it's about proportionality of risk to having a proven incredible systems and actually building in some of that. So you're designing out the potential problems that may or may not exist on a building site. So that's very much at the heart of AIMCH outputs.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, before I hand on to others, I think for me, what's great about modern methods is you really know what you're getting and producing, and you've got the scale to very thoroughly test the what's being created. Completely unlike the Grenville situation, where frankly nobody really knew what they were building there. Was it John wanted to come in next on this one?
I think Stuart's probably pretty much covered that, actually, unless anybody else does. So.
Okay, that's great. So another question from Zakaria Duckley from the University of Cambridge. Is there any mapping been done to identify the key MMC players in the UK? Maybe Lucy or Claire would know about this, but my comment would be I feel it's a very fast-moving picture, so any review might be rapidly out of date. But Lucy or Claire, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I'll come in. I mean, we're not aware of any comprehensive UK industry mapping to date. I think it's an area where where we can be doing some work. But for instance, CLC's Innovation in Building workstream has developed a Centres of Excellence network, which is on its website, and it features physical centres of excellence in MMC like the MTC, MRC, BRE, etc., as well as some knowledge and network players like Build Offsite, Offsite Hub, Supply Chain Sustainability School, etc. We supported a research piece of work with Scottish Government and Edinburgh Napier University, which is on our website, which was about increasing offsite construction in Scotland, and that certainly maps the Scottish key players, although it doesn't cover the UK players. But I think there is a needed on the back of that research piece that we did. We have got determined that there's a need for a strong database of knowledge and experience in MMC and offsite. So I think that's something that the government and support players should be looking at developing going forward.
Well, that's good. So would it be true to say that you could help people find wider suppliers as well if you're getting inquiries?
Yep. In terms of signposting, definitely.
That's great. That's great. Unless anyone else particularly want to come in on that, I'd like to move to another question. So question from Colin. It's really interesting to hear the progress that has been made following Panelised and standardised components approach. What potential timescale do you see for moving to a fully modular offsite approach? So before I hand over to others on that, my personal view is that this is not a sort of the necessary journey. I don't think we necessarily need to sort of end up fully modular. I think there are a lot of advantages in a panelised approach that can bring the benefits we're looking for from the industry. But again, others will have views on that. Oliver, I can see you nodding here. Do you want to start this one off?
Yeah, I mean, so I think when you look at volumetric or modular, I think with all the offsite systems that we're looking at, there are obviously benefits in certain approaches, similar to what we were talking about fire earlier. Modular currently is more successful for us in apartments, usually in city centres, because of the cost difference and because of the requirement for standardisation to a certain level. You have to play against planning in that situation. So, you know, that's where we're finding, you know, that we're considering it. I think the more panelised systems allow us more flexibility in the low rise in apartments. And if I'm honest, similar with the fire question, obviously there are certain materials that inherently are better in fire, so you apply those to the locations where you need more fire resistance. So again, I think one of the things this project is doing is it's defining what's the right material to use in the right place to get the benefit out, to make it a sensible business decision. And that's the key. And I saw earlier, sorry Sam, a question about, you know, how do we get small businesses and boards to change? Well, you get hard data that says by using MMC, you either have higher quality or as good a quality, but more importantly, are making the same amount of profit. When you do that, small businesses make the decision to vote with their feet. And that's what we're doing here, is we're getting the data to allow people with confidence to make the decisions. The reason sometimes small businesses can't do that, and you know, John can probably comment on this, is because they just don't have breadth of people. You know, we've got, in big businesses, you're capable of having someone that concentrates on it and has the time to do it, and that's sometimes the issue, and that's possibly why we should take the lead in some of these things.
And I suppose for me, sorry, I was going to say for me, that's one of the key things, talking about lean again. The point about lean, or one of the key points, is that actually it's about the reducing your cost, which has the ability then to increase your profits.
Yeah, that's absolutely the key thing. It leads us on well to another early question I got from Malcolm Horner of Whole Life Consultants Limited, and thinking Wayne might be the best expert on this. How was data collected to measure changes in performance between traditional and off-site construction, and what were the results? So data collection on performance.
Yeah, I think this is quite an interesting one, and in fact, although this has come to me, it may be that she wants to add a little bit, because the start of this sort of work actually was 10 years ago on AIMCH, the predecessor for this project. And what we're looking to do is we're measuring a lot of the build metrics as part of that business case, so the comparable against traditional. In terms of performance, we've actually got a dedicated work package on the project, which is looking at the different systems and some other hypotheticals and having a look at how they'll perform for different codes, particularly different Part L codes and sustainable codes, all the way through to zero carbon. I think one of the interesting things we chose not to do, though, and this is the bit that Stewart might want to add to, is because of the volume of units that we're producing is a smaller amount. Say, you know, ourselves are building 6, Barratt's are into 12 plus, etc. But in order to measure live metrics in the home to see what the actual live performance is versus, say, SAP modeling, you need a very, very large test data pool, possibly in the thousands. Of course, homes are expensive to build, so to produce that many prototypes, the funding would have been exponential, as it were. So for ourselves, in such a small data pool, you can get too much variation. If you have half your residents open the door a lot, or don't keep the heating on, or put it on too much, you can get abnormalities when comparing it to traditional homes. So on this particular project, cost-wise, certainly, and because of the pool of prototypes we're building, it wasn't deemed suitable to actually fill the homes with live metrics of measurements. But I'll allow Stewart maybe just to wrap up on that, because I know that it has been attempted previously on AIMCH with similar consequences.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Our focus on this one is very much about the monitoring on live building sites. So it's about the construction monitoring in the main, to do with labour, productivity, waste, safety issues, uptime, downtime, that sort of metrics. Because that hard data that Oliver's already alluded to is really important to inform the business case for change, and that'll drive the decision-making process to adopt more MMC type systems going forward, having that data. So our focus is very much about that at the moment. And obviously linking up with Homes England, who are doing one of the biggest monitoring studies across 10 or 12 sites that they've released through their MMC programme recently. Working with UCL and Atkins, so that the metrics are aligned. We've also considered the CLC metrics as well from that point of view. What we're not doing within AIMCH is doing any design versus as-built performance testing, so the physical heat loss of the building and such like. That's quite a complicated project in itself to do co-heating tests and to look at the as-built SAP versus the actual SAP outcome of that building. But what we will be doing is engaging with the customers who buy these homes over the course of the 24 months, defects periods through our normal business operations. So we'll be harvesting feedback on how they feel about their home, if there's any issues with the home, etc., through more that occupants sort of evaluations, as opposed to any formal performance testing of the as-built product. Is what we're doing there. So the focus is on monitoring during construction.
Thank you very much, Stewart. I'd just like to finish with one last question. I'm not sure I've seen the full question, but this is about sort of timber centricity of what we've been doing. So if Oliver could expand on that a little bit.
Sure. Can you hear me? That's the first question.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, I think we've talked a lot about timber, closed panel and all that, but I just wanted there was a question, Sam, right at the beginning regarding, it seems very timber centric. We have got a concrete panelised system project that we're doing, and obviously, John's applying concrete tiles and other technology. So I think we are looking at timber frame, but we are looking at concrete. I think as businesses, I know L&Q and ourselves, we look at all systems very sort of material agnostic. And I think it sort of leads back into the point that we recognise certain materials will be better in certain areas. I think the one thing we haven't been asked, which is probably worth noticing, that we will also be looking at things like embodied energy and things like that. So we are starting to look at a lot of holistic approach of MMC systems. I thought it was important that, after the question, people recognise that we are material agnostic in this project. It's about the best solution, not the best material.
Yes, and I would reinforce that with regards to the whole of transforming construction. Really, we're setting out to be agnostic, as it were, in as many ways as possible. We're not trying to steer people down a particular route. What we're trying to do is reduce waste, improve quality, improve sustainability, by whatever means we can. But we do know that standardization and modern methods and things are applicable in all those areas. So I think we've come to the end of the available time for questions. So thank you very much to everyone who submitted questions. I'm sorry if we missed one or two of them. Thanks also to my great panelists. I think the quality of debate has been terrific on this session. I've certainly enjoyed it very much. I've learned a bit about what we're getting from the investments in transforming construction. Just to sort of again, sort of back to housekeeping, please do, as far as possible, fill out your feedback forms. We'd be keen to hear your feedback, and we'll do our best to respond to anything that crops up afterwards. We provided some links in the chat box for you to use. So on that note, again, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the session.